Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome, or hopefully welcome back to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is The Power of Etiquette and Manners. My co-host, Mr. Philip SYKES from the British School of Excellence, has the day off. So I am very excited to welcome our guest. Before I do, I have two quick announcements. I'm really excited that we have launched our own jewelry line. This is Dr. JACALYN's very first piece that you can have customized with your own name. You're not going to get my name, right? You're going to have your own name, your business name, your tagline. This is all in diamonds. This is sterling silver. And you can get more information on my website. And the other announcement is my second book is out. I would love for you to go over to Amazon and pick up a copy of Adversity to Awesome. My colleagues and I put this book together. The first chapter is my story. There are 11 other chapters from other authors. So please go over to Amazon. Now, without further ado, I'd love to introduce our guest today. Her name is Michelle Nolan O'Driscoll, and we're going to be talking about everything related to voice. She's a vocal coach, a lecturer, and she's a presenter. Her areas of expertise are business coaching, interview preparation, stage presence, posture, and breathing, and of course, relaxation. Let's welcome her to the show. Hi, Michelle.
Good afternoon. It is today here, Dr. JACALYN.
Nice to have you with us. Where are you joining from today?
From the Republic of Ireland, 50 miles south of the capital, Dublin.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. I'm here in the States in Florida, and I'm looking forward to this interview because I need my voice all the time as a broadcaster. And I think what people don't realize is that your voice makes an impression, and how we use our voice, whether or not we keep our vocal cords nice and lubricated with some water, all these things make a difference. But before we dive into the topics, Michelle, I'm going to spotlight you. And if you can share with our audience, why are you passionate about voice, and what's the backstory that got you to where you are?
Well, it's very interesting you should ask me that, Dr. JACALYN, because every client that I meet, there is a story behind why they come to me. And part of public speaking or presenting, and the late President Obama was a great storyteller. So a couple of years ago, I started out initially as a musician, but at 4 years of age, I believe I was quite a good singer. So my mum had friends visit, and she said to me, you know, Michelle, will you sing your little song for our friends? And I said, sure, Mum, I will. So we had a little scullery attached to the kitchen. And I went into the scullery and I closed over the door with the exception of 1 inch. And I sang my little party piece through that inch. And it was at that point that my mother said, there is no way I'm raising a daughter that'll speak behind a partly open door. And I was marched to speech classes from then until I was qualified at 24 years of age. So that's the story. That's how. And I often look back, Dr. JACALYN, and I think if my mother had just put that down to, well, she's shy, she's only 4 years old, she'll get better in a couple of years' time, might I be the person that I am today? Might I be the person that's able to help so many other people because I have experienced that? And I remember that situation very clearly, even though I don't have much of a vivid memory of my previous very young life. But I can remember, I can even get the smell in that scullery at that time. And so many people that I deal with have had incidents happen to them in their lives that have blocked them from speaking out for whatever that reason might be. It could have been some kind of trauma. It might have been the way they were raised. Years ago, children were supposed to be quiet, you know. play around, but don't speak up and don't make any noise. So the child's voice, when you want to be very vocal, we were all told to be very quiet and not to speak, and dare you share your opinion. So a lot of people have had that. Perhaps some of the clients have been told, oh, well, you're not very good at things, really. So some kind of a negative comment would have affected their speech. Now, then we go into other situations where you might have, which is not an area that I work in, but you may have had an accident or something that might have brought on a stammer, or it might have brought up on some type of speech delay in terms of delivery. But that's what happened. So at 4 years of age, I started speech training, and I've been doing it ever since. Having worked with younger children and being able to bring them up through the ranks in terms of technique, it's lovely to see children. One young child that I had spent one whole year under the chair and would not come out. And that boy now is entering public speaking competitions and winning them, hands down. And you say to yourself, if he hadn't had our intervention, might he have remained like that for the rest of his life? The problem is, if that had been the case, it would affect his personal life, his business life, his regular communication with his friends and his community. So it's wonderful that we can release that block to allow people to communicate in their own style, because the voice is very unique. We all speak differently. We have different tones, but still we need to communicate. And I believe that nobody should prevent us, or we should not have to ask for the permission of anybody to use our voice.
Thank you, Michelle. You shared a lot of really important points there. And something that really came up for me as you were speaking is I was told many times that I have a horrible voice and I love to sing, and I was told not to sing. And now I'm actually co-writing a song and collaborating with an international award-winning singer-songwriter. So but the point, so you were told, from an early age, I think that that's where we need to really evaluate, how are we speaking to each other? What are we saying to one another? Because something can leave a lasting impression that then takes years and years to undo.
That is quite true. That is quite true. COVID has changed an awful lot for us in terms of how we work and how we behave. A lot of people have regressed. A lot of adults are still finding it very comfortable and safe to be behind the computer because we've been closed up for almost 2 years. And the whole element of eye contact is gone because the university that I work in, it's not obligatory for students to turn on their cameras. So we've had to give lots of lectures where we're just looking at black square shapes on the computer with somebody's name on it. And the difficulty there is that you can't assess whether they're engaging with it, whether what you're saying is making sense to them. Maybe are they tired? Do they need a rest? But a lot of people have hidden behind that camera for 2 years. So we're all gotten used to just texting. They'd rather text now than take up the phone and actually speak. So it's very important now, the ambitious people, I would say for certain, and I know from our own capital city, are all coming back into the offices. The ones that really want to get on, we've put COVID behind us now, there's a new beginning, and they want to be so articulate and confident. And the whole voice area has just boomed in this country because all of a sudden people are realizing how important it is to be able to use your voice properly. Now, not everybody is going to be a natural orator, but what we can do is we can give you the skills that make speaking in public, whatever the occasion, so much easier because we've done it for so many people. So rather than thinking I have to give a speech, but I don't really know what to do, so maybe if I don't think about it, that on the day when I stand up to speak, just magic will happen and it will all work out. And sadly, that's not the way it works. It's very important to be prepared for your speech, no matter where you are or what the occasion is. And the other thing I would say is to people to always be ready. Regardless of what the situation is, always be ready in case you're called upon, because most people do not get out of life without being called on to do something. And I had a student 2 years ago, very beautiful young girl, blonde girl, and she was a singing student and going on to do her BA in performance. And I had her reading something one day and she paused for a little bit and she said to me, she said, Michelle, I have an exemption for this. And I said, what do you mean? I mean, I could clearly tell that she had a stammer. She said, because of my stammer, I have an exemption that I don't have to do the speaking part of my exam. So I said to her, well, you may have an exemption with the exam board, but you have no exemption with me, because the day will come when perhaps the person who is due to introduce the concert or give the synopsis of the opera in which you're about to sing falls ill, and it comes upon you to go out on stage. And I said, I will not be the one that will have been responsible for allowing you to have that exemption, to walk out on stage against your own will without having any of the confidence or the techniques, and to make a holy show of yourself that you will live with that regret for your life. I cannot do that.
Yes.
So we worked through all the techniques and the possible situations, because you know, in the arts, Dr. Jacalyn, people are working and giving concerts, they're flying in from one place to the other, the flight gets delayed, they lose their bag, the instrument is left on the train. So there's always a possibility where you might be called upon to speak. And it's so important to be ready. So I don't accept exemptions.
Michelle, there's so many things that you just said that I want to touch on. The last comment that you made, you are so right. And a story that's actually true that hopefully will have this really resonate with people. When I was doing my doctoral residency, there were a group of us, there were 15 of us. We had to divide into 3 teams of 5, and each team had to take this business case study and come up with our response. And of the 5 of us, we each had a different role. So long story short, because I was in sales, I was to go first. I was going to open the presentation, and then so on and so on. So I got up to do the presentation, and the professor held up a card, and on the card it had, "Please sit down." And he came right up to my face, "Please sit down." So I sat down, and the next person had to do my part. So the person started flipping through the computer, and the professor closed the computer and put, "Please sit down." So it went all the way to the last person, and the last person had to do the entire presentation, and of course was unable to do it. And I will never forget that for my entire life.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And actually, Dr. Jacalyn, I'm very privileged from the point of view that the university that I teach in, our previous director realized the value of voice, and he's the first person that introduced 5-year-olds into a 3rd level setting. And so therefore you can come into our university and you can train, particularly to be a musician. Although we do voice and singing, of course, you can come in at 5 years of age and you can leave at 25 with a PhD. So I coach all of these children from a very early age, and I also coach the masters and the PhD students for their vivas. The big thing that I have when you talk about your PhD and your presentation is, when I'm sitting there rehearsing with the PhD students, I'm listening to their thesis, their research question, which they have spent 3 years studying. And I say to them, I'm not getting one scrap of passion. Where is your passion? You had the choice of choosing this question. Nobody said you must study this and that's your brief. You decided what it is you wanted to research. You've spent 3 years of the best years of your life studying this, and I don't get one scrap of passion. Because Aristotle always talked about words, but I talk about melody in words. If you put melody into your words, then you're absolutely connecting with people. And there's an authenticity there, so that if you're in somebody's company and you're listening to somebody that's quite passionate, okay, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'll never be like that, and I wish I could be, and everything else. But at least there's hope. And I think that it's very important today, as we come out of COVID, that all of us who are in the business world and presenting, that we offer all of the people that come into our sphere hope, because it's very important that they realize that after the 2 years that we've all been through. So with the type of work that I do, and people have regressed, it's never too late to start. It's never too late to start. And as I said to you, if you put the passion and the melody into it, so that is my goal. That when I'm dealing with the masters and the PhD students, I said, just imagine you're in university. We've all had these drolling lectures that we had to sit through forever. But I said, change the world. This is what you've decided to research. and share that passion. That's what we say about letting the voice that's in your heart come through your mouth.
I'm wondering what their response was. It is because they were burnt out from from spending so much time working on the
Yes,
dissertation?
possibly true. And I think too, Dr. Jacqueline, when you're doing something yourself, I mean, even for myself, sometimes if I have to prepare, a very important document, you become so wrapped up in the syntax. Is the tone right? Have I opened it correct? Or speech writing? That sometimes you can see something that's very obvious. So it could very, very well be the case. It could really very well be the case.
And I think that happens many times in life where we have a passion or a desire, and then we get so focused and we don't take that time away to take a break and reflect and then come back
Right.
fully present, that we do get burnout, and now we forgot why we were doing what we're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's no doubt. And language evolves, and we all will communicate in very many different ways. I was very fortunate that I was Zooming before COVID started, but it was all very new for a lot of people. People who had to work at home, there was a lot of stress attached to that, So that brought on all of that, and we communicate now in different ways. But I think it all comes back to the point that if you have respect for yourself, and then most especially respect for the people who you are dealing with, that really is the basis of a very good relationship. So that I can empathize with somebody that comes to me saying, oh, I'm very nervous about my speech. I don't know how to do this. I've never done that before. If I make a mistake, I'm going to look stupid. And one of the things that we try to say to our clients is, let's not talk negativity, because negativity is very bad. It has a very bad effect. The more you allow yourself to speak, oh, I can't do this, I never had a good voice, as you say, people saying to you that you're never going to be a singer, we shouldn't listen to these things. We should just bin those in our mind and keep on the positive all the time, because we have enough bad news circulating in the world, and we can't take that on our shoulders. So I think it's just very important that in terms of having respect, in terms of being able simply to make eye contact with people. We work with consultants at hospitals. They have to go be interviewed for various reg positions. And one interview that we had recently, the senior consultant just said to the consultant that was being interviewed, could you please just look me in the eye for once? He looked everywhere except in somebody's eye. If you don't make eye contact, you're showing complete disengagement and disregard for who you're working for or who you're speaking to. So it's the little things that are so important. Slang and jargon has punctuated our language now for far too long, and it's very, very irritating. Some people that we work with will say, well, if I sound like you're telling me to do, I'm going to sound awfully posh and my voice is going to change. I said, your voice will change because I want you to put passion and melody into it. But all I'm asking you to do is to articulate the words as they are written. Nothing else. I'm not asking you to be posh. But it's become there's so much slang and there's so much jargon coming into language now. And really it's the people who invest in voice. They're the ones that are standing out, because we all have to agree. I mean, I could listen to President Obama forever speaking. Bill Clinton was another wonderful orator. Our own president is absolutely fantastic. And I think it's wonderful to point out the pitfalls to people so that they too can deliver powerful speeches.
Yes, I agree with you. Thanks for sharing that. Two comments that I have. As you know, this is the power of etiquette and manners. And you mentioned early on that in your role as a teacher, that students don't have their cameras on. And we talk a lot about that when it comes to etiquette, especially if you're on a Zoom meeting, the importance of having the cameras on. So if you would share with us, what is the thought process there that they don't have to have the cameras on?
It has all got to do with GDPR and human rights, and the fact that the client can have the choice as to whether they come on the computer or not, whether they show their face or not, and connect in that way with the camera on. The other thing too, Dr. Jacqualyn, was I really feel myself this stemmed out of the start of Zoom for people, because a lot of students, I know we had one student who couldn't put on his camera. He was very honest because he was sitting in a bunk bed and his younger brother was sleeping overhead. So that was the reality of Zoom when it started first, that all of a sudden we had to find that space in our homes for that office space. And just out of privacy and respect for people, I think that's actually where it all stemmed from, that perhaps I was having to connect in my bedroom, or some of our TV presenters were actually in their garages and under the stairs. And that really was I know 2 years on, we kind of forget that, but that was the reality. So they were given the opportunity then not to share their screens. But it was very difficult, because you know yourself when you're presenting, you get a feel for the audience, you get a feel for the mood within the room. You know that whether you're connecting with them, whether they're making sense, whether exciting them, are you entertaining them? Do they need a coffee break? And you can suss all of that when you're in person, but you cannot do it when you're on Zoom. So I think that's where a lot of people lost out in that regard.
And I think it makes sense to your earlier point that when we start doing something on a regular basis, we incorporate it into our daily lives, and hence the whole thing of hiding behind the computer, where people lose that confidence and those the skill set to interact with someone. And even though you and I are in different countries, we're actually interacting. You can see my body language, I can see yours, I can see your eyes, you can see mine. I know I've had requests from people, can they come on this show and have their camera off? No, you can't. I have to be able to see you. So I'm sure that must have been very difficult to be able to deliver the content and have the engagement with the students if you're not able to see them.
It was extremely difficult. I mean, there was one day I was guest lecturer at DCU in Dublin, and I had 3 2-hour lectures on a Monday and a Tuesday. And I just hope I never have to go back to that again. Because the other thing is too, that authenticity. You know, when you're looking at somebody, they can know by your facial expression, your eyes, and even the tone of your voice that you really care for the difficulties that they have. Excuse me. So if somebody has a difficulty presenting something, or putting the passion, as you say, that they've lost through the research of the 3 years for the PhD question, they know by looking at you and listening to your voice and your body movement that you really care. You really, really care, and you're there to help them. But you cannot convey that when the camera is off, either my camera or theirs. Mine would never be off. And we are there to support them. And the voice is a funny one, really, because I've never met anybody, I don't think, that hasn't said, I don't like the sound of my own voice, because everybody hears our voices differently. But the point about it is, if we just observe what we're given, it's happening worldwide, I guess. But there are so many Irish people speaking like Americans today. And then the fillers are a problem. And I'm always saying to people, gather your thoughts before you say anything. If you're asked a question, please do not start with, because I've lost you straight away. What does M mean? It means absolutely nothing. Like is the greatest disease that has come into the verbal world in the last 4 or 5 years. And little commas and punctuations and exclamation marks never asked to be verbalized. So please delete them from your voice. You know, we don't need them, and it becomes very irritating. It's like the word basically. So many people get into the habit of using the word basically. So if you ask me a question and I say to you, well, Dr. Jacalyn, basically it's this way. It's so condescending. It's almost like when you really wouldn't have a clue, because I'm saying, well, basically, now let me see how I'm going to explain this to you. So for me, it has very negative connotations in terms of speech and in terms of answering a question. And I always say to people too that when they're reading and engaging, we all have our notes. We all have our notes, especially if you're going up, because maybe the presentation goes, the Wi-Fi goes, there's a power cut, and you always need to have a backup. But from the very beginning, regardless, you go in and introduce yourself to the audience. But if you're going to give a talk about something, never, ever connect that first question by reading your notes. Because all of a sudden, what you've set up at the beginning, you've now lost your audience. So you should know that opening statement without having to look at anything, and you share that with your audience, and then automatically you're bringing them into your world. They can see you're on their side. If you start any presentation with the page, making a statement, now straight away, oh, this is all learned off. We'll be looking at PowerPoint. She's got her pages. How many pages has she got? And it's completely off-putting. There has to be, it's like a performer on stage. You're not going to watch an opera where the soprano, Mimi, has the score in her hand and she's reading the notes. There has to be that complete abandonment. And this all comes down to preparation. If we're working with people doing a conference, so we have a gentleman or a lady giving a presentation for IBM, BMW, Volkswagen, wherever they are, we follow them and we go to the venue. And 1 or 2 nights, preferably the night before, we go through absolutely everything with them. They dress as they're going to dress on stage. They approach the stage. They know exactly where they're sitting. They go up on stage. They've checked the lectern, the mics, the technology, the presentation that they have. They get a feel for the room and how they should scan the room. And they give the entire speech and they walk back down again. So that the following morning, when they get up there, they have that feeling as, I'm familiar with this space. I've done this. And I've only done it recently. They're not getting up, fumbling, wasting time. Hey, John, is that working? Can we test it again? 1, 2, 3. That's not the time for that when you've got people that have paid probably good money to come and listen to you present. That all is housekeeping stuff that should be done and should have nothing to do with the audience. Today, people are very busy. If I sign up to do a course, I clearly am very interested in the content of that course and I want to get the most I possibly can out of it. I don't want to sit there for half an hour wondering whether the tech guy's, oh, he's having his breakfast because he was up early, but the battery is flat and the plug won't fit in because it's an Apple and we don't have the attachment. All of that has to be tidied back. So we are there with the client. And then we sit in the audience. When they are up presenting, they know when they are standing looking from that stage that I'm straight away down there on table 8. And we have various gestures that we do. In case the presenter, for example, is rushing, speaking far too fast, we have a gesture that we can do and they know to slow down their delivery of speech. So when they stand up there, and if it's their first time particularly, they stand up there and the room is full of 300, 400, 500 people, that they don't sort of think, oh my goodness, I'm on my own and everybody is looking at me, right? They know that I'm there for them. And nothing can go wrong because we've practiced all of this. And if I'm stumbling or I've repeated my words or it's dragging a little bit or somebody needs a break, I'm there giving the gestures. Now, if you're sitting beside me and you say, oh, which company are you with? I go with the idea. It's my job to have done the research for the company. So I would say, well, I work with USA Global TV and I have all the spiff ready to go as if I am an employee. So nobody knows my function there. I'm not saying, oh, I'm here because John Fleming, he's not good at the public speaking and he hired me so that I can help him out. And sure, the poor devil, we hope he'll get through it. That's not what we do. We don't. We empower people from the second they come to us and we let them know that nothing is impossible in this world.
I love that. I didn't realize that this type of service was available. And I can see how, as the presenter, as the speaker, you would have a lot of confidence knowing that you've got an ally out there who has your back and is guiding you. So that's brilliant. Something I want to go back to, because I see this on a regular basis, is the use of filler words. And some people, it's just naturally part of how they speak. Mm-hmm. How are you able to work with people to get them to stop using them when they're using them even in their regular talk, communication with people, and it's actually highlighted when they are doing a public speech?
Everything is habit. Everything to do with the voice is habit. And what most people don't do, and I'm speaking also now as a musician, they do not connect the ear to the voice. They don't listen. This is not connected. Now that might sound totally bizarre because you think, how can I speak and I can't hear myself? And what we do is we start with little steps. So for example, the like, we do not use like in any shape or form in my sessions. I don't care if you like me, you can tell me you love me or you hate me, but you do not say like. We just cut it out completely. Zero tolerance. And it's amazing when you imitate a dialogue. I went to the park like, and it started to rain like, and then like, you see like, I decided like to go home like. Now when you say that to a client, they automatically think, oh, jeepers, that's me. I use it that often. It sounds terrible when you do it. So what we do is we ask them bit by bit. So for the next 2 weeks, don't use like at all. And if you do, you become conscious of it. And then we begin to say, when you're speaking and especially responding to a question, and we have to do this with breathing as well, just take that second. The minute somebody asks you a question, you don't have to give the answer straight away. So rather than if you're being interviewed and asked 5 or 6 questions, that every question begins with pause. We all have to become at ease with pause. There is no problem with taking 1 or 2 seconds to gather your thoughts. So we take it bit by bit, and it is absolutely amazing how many people realize, oh my goodness, I've used like there again. And I say, yes, you've used it. That's great, because you've recognized that it's incorrect. So with time, they will filter out those fillers. So the M's and the but and like and basically just must go. They must go.
Let's add to that, you know.
Oh, the you know.
You know.
You know is actually, and I'd be the first to give out about the Irish, but it's very American, you know, and it's an upward inflection, you know, almost looking for approval, as if you're looking for approval. Make the statement. I have to go to a lecture now. I'll not be finished until 4 o'clock. I will see you then, period. Not, you know, because most oftentimes they don't know. So it's housekeeping the language and the speech. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like
yes.
Yes. It's like looking at your home. I don't need that. I've had it for years. This is broken. That's worn out. Get rid of it. You know?
The use of the word like, I'm going to focus on not using that at all. I think that's a great exercise. And also the word basically, I never looked at it from that perspective, but when basically you are insulting someone because I think the meaning is, I'd like to explain it to you at this level, but clearly you're not capable of understanding. So I'm going to go with the basic, the child, the 101 method.
You've hit the nail on the head, Dr. Jacalyn. That's exactly it. And it's funny how I know a lot of people don't think about that. But then what we say too is, you know, I was saying this morning to a group that in this country, it's about 55,000 euros to buy an electric car. And it's all the rage now. If you don't have an electric car, you're just not at the races. But in 2 years' time, that'll probably have dropped to 20,000 euro. And it'll drop further and further and further. But how many people actually think, you know, I might just spend a little bit of money in terms of improving my vocal expression? No, they don't think of doing that. And it's when, as you say, you are aware of, it's my job to know these things. I go to my doctor for medical things. I go to my optician for my eyes. But it's my job to be able to highlight these to people. And then they realize that, and we were saying this morning too, that but is another word. But you see, let me explain this now because you're really still not getting it. And it's just to avoid those, I'm just big into the glass is half full, it's never half empty. So when you can articulate powerfully, I think that's the way to go. That's what we encourage people to do.
I agree with you. I love to learn, and I've learned several things here today that I'm going to incorporate. Something else I want to pass on, when I was having my first book edited, I was told by my editor I used the word that, THAT, many times. And in most cases, you can eliminate the word that. So now I'm highly focused on removing that from my speech and from my writing. We don't realize we get into these patterns, as you mentioned.
Yes, we do. And you know, it's all about, as you say, it's all about learning. Prior to having your book edited, you didn't know that. And it's all about learning for everybody. I mean, I'm 35 years in this business and I'm still learning. There's not a day that I don't pick up on something, you know. And the other thing about it is too, that in terms of using power words, I find when people come to me for interview preparation, it's, as you say about that, I went to here, I used to work there. I then went to, it's all such plain nursery language and vocabulary. Why don't you use words like I initiated, I brought about, I invented, I suggested, I developed? Now I'm thinking, well, this is a very good prospective employee because they're using their brain. They're showing me that they have initiative. So to use power words rather than I did this, I sat there, tell me what you did, initiate, process, develop. All of those words are so important, and we need to use them in our language so that they just flow.
I definitely agree with you. I have a story of something that happened to me in the work environment when I was in corporate. I had been brought up by my parents to use large words and long sentences. And I truly believe that as I got my master's, as I got my doctorate. And I was told in my corporate role, I use too many big words and too many long sentences. And when I speak or write, it should be the size, the number of characters in a Twitter post. And of course, the person who delivered this information to me was younger than I am. And I really thought about that. And I thought, am I just a Twitter post now that all my education experience, I have to break it down to basically, right? Basically talking down to people with a Twitter post.
Yes, it's interesting. It can be we had a client a couple of months back, and he was saying that he was in Toastmasters, and the head of Toastmasters, like you, used to use all these suitcase words, as we call them. And he said, I would love to have that agility in my language. Well, I said, the problem is it's rather, what's the word I'm looking for? It's distasteful when your language is overloaded with these big words, because what we're trying to do all the time is communicate. So if we have somebody that's using all these big words, and I think I've never heard of that before, I must be stupid, I haven't heard of that word, and now there's another big one coming, well, I just want to get away. So you're not connecting with people. And it is true, when you're putting sentences together, we're all inclined to put in too many words, where one word is quite sufficient. As you say, I do not want to do that, or that was there when that happened. We need to look at how we are expressing ourselves and just to be aware of it. And I always think too, it's very important to read the classics, to read good material. Too much bad news out there. And when we read good material, we're always learning. I mean, how can you not read Joyce or Wilde or O'Casey or anybody, Walt Whitman for his poetry, and say, how beautiful is that, the way he did it? I wouldn't have that skill. So it's important always to use good material. Mediocrity just doesn't come into it. And when you get to that level, then you're really standing out of the crowd.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Something else I want to go back to before we close out is the power of silence.
Yes.
And how you can watch people visibly become uncomfortable in the silence. Why are we so afraid of pausing and having there be a moment when neither one of us is saying anything? Because we're really saying everything.
As you say that, all I can think of, and forgive me for using it again, but I just think he's wonderful, is Barack Obama. And the huge point about it is, and we apply it to a different speaking artistry, which is poetry. If you're reading poetry, it's a very concise form. And you cannot read one line after the other because it takes a while for the mind to adapt to what the poet is saying. So you need to let that wash over the listener for comprehension. It's very important and I always say this to people, when you stand up to give a speech or any presentation, always give yourself, as you say, Dr. Jacalyn, those couple of moments to settle yourself there, to assess the audience, to allow them to settle. It's very important. When you go to a classical concert and the conductor comes out, he's not picking up the baton from the first violinist before he gets to the stand and he starts there's a moment of pause. And it is all part of the theatrics as well. He's allowing the orchestra to settle. He's giving them time that the recital is about to begin. We do the same thing when we're speaking. I think we're all in a rat race, and I think life has gone actually as bad as pre-COVID. And we all want to go faster, and we all have so much to share, and we all have so much to tell. But it's allowing, if you're giving a presentation and you do not stop and allow that pause, your audience are not taking it in. It all becomes gobbledygook, one thing after the other. And you must ask yourself, what is the impact? Now, especially in storytelling with public speaking, if you allow that pause after telling a story, that shows your vulnerability too. So you don't want your audience to think, oh, they're great. They're at it every day of the week. I wish I was that good. It's easy for them to go up there and talk about it. I think it's lovely in a speech or when we're presenting that we show our own vulnerability. Like you talking about your parents asking you and insisting that you use those big words. Or in my case, stuck behind the scullery door trying to sing through the crack. And it's very important that we do that because we are human, and we've all been through this. There's always an edge of nervousness, and how you control that is by pause. Just give yourself those couple of moments. It's huge. It's one of the most difficult things that we have actually to learn and to teach, the element of pause.
Yes, I have a quick story about the element of pause. In my corporate role, I had a presentation in front of a board, and this was a project that was worth millions of dollars, and our team had worked on it diligently for a couple of months. And when I went to present, the decision maker was in front of me with two other gentlemen. I had not met the three of them before I met the rest of the people. And as I was preparing to speak, they were all playing with their phone. So I just stood in front of them and said nothing. And I waited. That it seemed like it was forever. I waited for them to look up, and they did. And the decision maker asked me what I was doing. And I said, I was waiting for you to show me the respect I deserve so I can continue my presentation.
Just perfect. And that's exactly the way you do it. Because if you get up and that happens and you don't allow that moment of pause, they're never going to look out of their phones. And always when you get up to speak, regardless of what the occasion is, whether you're lecturing, giving a presentation, at a book launch or something, you always have your homework done. You have to put in 3 times the amount of work before you give a presentation so that you're completely in control. And you're completely confident. And then the other thing is too, by knowing what you want to say, you're not looking at the pages all the time. There's that element of spontaneity. And when you get up there and you're so in control because you've put the preparation into it, then that allows you to react with your audience. So you pause and you notice that somebody might want to ask a question or whatever the situation might be. You are completely in control. So that's well done. That is exactly what we do. We allow 2 or 3 minutes for the room to settle. And then you go for it. Eye contact, first statement.
Thank you so much, Michelle. We are actually at the end of the show. I've really enjoyed meeting you, and I've learned many things. How would you like people to reach out to you, and who would you like to contact you?
Anybody that would ever want to do anything in terms of voice. A lot of people would say, I would love to be able to read some prose for a party piece. I'd love to be able to read poetry. I've always wanted to conquer my fear of public speaking. Can you help me? Yes. I know that I'm using too many fillers and my voice is very monotone. Come to me. So anybody that's doing a presentation, anybody that's going for an interview, anybody who is presenting, doing a book launch, anybody that has something niggling back there, I can't do it, and I don't know where to seek the help. They are the people that can come to me, and we will change their thinking and their world.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. And we have here coming soon your website. How can people connect with you now?
They can connect with me on ridelmount.ie. ridelmount@hotmail.com. My new website is going to be live in 2 weeks' time.
Would you please spell the email so I can type it and people can then have
Thank
it?
you. It's RYDALMOUNT@hotmail.com.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
My university website is just the name is far too long, so I won't give you that one.
All right, we have it here for people to go ahead and contact you. RYDALMOUNT@hotmail.com.
That's it, Dr. Jacalyn. A pleasure to have spent the afternoon with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. And you're welcome to come back on any of our other shows. We have about 25 live shows each week. Each show has a different topic. So please do reach out and join us again. We'd love to find out what else is going on with you, what else you're working on, especially when your website launches. That would be
Yes,
terrific.
we look forward to that too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and the weekend.
We will. Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye for now. Thank you, everyone, for watching, for listening, for subscribing to our YouTube channel. I really do appreciate it. I reflect every Friday how fortunate I am, how grateful I am to be able to have this platform and have people from all over the world. We just had Michelle from Ireland. On our last show, we had someone from the UK and someone from Australia. And our next show, we have someone from Vienna. It is truly a gift. If you would like to join us, please go over to our website, usaglobaltv.com, book your session. On another note, for those who are not aware, in addition to being the president and founder of USA Global TV, I'm also a certified life and career coach. I'm a certified meditation teacher and a certified yoga instructor. And I also am the listening mentor. I teach people how to listen at an elevated level. And I would love for you to join me in my mission to help people find inner peace by being a better listener, having deeper connections, better relationships, and more authentic conversations. So what can you do? Go over to my other website, drjacalyn.com, and take the power of listening. You'll get certified and you'll become a team member here on USA Global TV. You will be an elevated listener and you get invited to a lot of wonderful opportunities to share your expertise and let the world know you hold a safe space for them when it comes to being an elevated listener. Thank you so much for listening to me. We will be back shortly in just over 15 minutes with our next show, which is Talking Heads. And thank you so much to Michelle. Thank you to the British School of Excellence. And thank you to Philip and Leanne for making this happen today. Bye for now.